Today I'm going to tie a pheasant tail variation. We're going to go with something in the gray palette. Pheasant tails traditionally have been representations of mayfly activity in your aquatic ecosystem. I'm going to put in a size 14 jig hook. And we've got a silver slotted tungsten 3.0 millimeter bead. And I'll start just by tying in some black thread behind the bead, and with touching turns get a thread base down and come back all the way to the hook bend before trimming that excess off. One day I'm going to use really thin thread and practice snapping it off because that looks really cool. This is a ringneck pheasant tail in a muskrat gray color. I think gray is kind of an underrated natural color. And I'm going to take 4 or 5 of these. No real need to bulk this up. And I'm going to kind of measure that tail by figuring out where I want that to end up, and then I'll transfer over to my other hand and come over top. I'm going to come over top with 2 wraps, and then I'll just look at it and see if I like it. This, I think, is a little long, so I'll pull it up at that point. And then come in front a few times to secure that. I'm going to tie in my wire next, and this is going to be a silver small UTC wire. I'm going to use small on this. If I go down to something like an 18, I may downsize that to an extra small. And so I will actually tie this in at the back, but I'm going to leave a little bit of that wire in length up front so it doesn't slide out. I don't want it to be too long so it passes that bead, but I do want it to have enough length to tie in good enough to secure it and to keep that body width uniform as I come up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and wrap these pheasant tail fibers. There are times when you really work on getting a good tapered body. I'm not as concerned for this fly because I'm actually going to have a pretty big collar area. If this was more in a Frenchy style where I was tying that pheasant tail all the way up to the back of the bead, I'd worry more about having a pronounced taper to it, and I'd probably bring a few more fibers in to start that fly. Trim off my excess, and then I'm going to come over top and start wrapping my silver wire. Feel free, if you're a fan of counter wrapping it the other way, if you feel like that gives this a little more strength or durability. I don't necessarily find it to be the case, but then again, I go through a lot of flies, so I may not pay attention. Trim that down. Okay, we're going to come in with our wing casing next, and I'm going to use, this is a Vivus holographic silver tinsel, and I'll tie that in right behind the bead, and I'll start by laying that a little towards me, because when you wrap that in, it has a tendency to come over top. I'm going to wrap it back about 1/3 of the way. And my next material is going to be a gray ostrich plume. I like to use these ostrich plumes as a substitute for peacock curl when I'm looking to use a little different color variation. It gives a very similar effect, a very similar buggy effect. But again, as you see, I can get grays, greens, blues, all kind of different colors using this. I'm going to take a couple of these and tie them in. Make sure I'm grabbing the right stuff before I wrap it. And if you notice, that's really going to give that collar a nice leggy bugginess. Couple wraps in back, few in front before I trim that excess off. And then I'm going to use a feather from an India hen cape. That's a little black feather, and in order to tie that in, I'm going to take my hackle pliers and pinch that, and then start stroking these fibers backwards. And what that will do is give me a little triangle up here that I can tie in. Again, I'll tie that right next to me. I'll try and grab this little triangle as I come over top. It's not going to want to cooperate, is it? There we go. And a few wraps to secure that. When I'm tying something that's a little gingerly like this, a lot of times I will use these rotary hackle pliers. Are a little easier for me to control. Come over top with that and lock that in. And trim off my excess up here. It's giving us a little bit of a soft hackle look. And then I'll come over top with that holographic tinsel and create a nice wing casing. Give us a whip finish. And then the last and final thing I'm going to do is hit that with just a touch of Deer Creek or whatever your favorite UV resin is. The Solar Res works real well too. And that's going to do two things. It's going to add a little height to that wing casing, and then it's also going to lock that thread in a little bit better and secure that fly a little bit better. So there you have it. Turn that to the side so you can get a little bit better profile on what that looks like with the wing casing. But certainly a good fly to be throwing out there. The darker color, especially if you've got a little bit of a stain to the water or if you're in a low light condition, will pay off. And I appreciate your time and watching. Please subscribe to my channel. You can purchase these materials and more at www.bigtflyfishing.com.